This isn't going to work as well as you think it is.
No, it's not.
That's dangerous.
I've done it a million times.
I've never seen you do it a million.
I'm good.
Is it one of those moments in your life where you look at this whole situation and you're like, did I really make the smartest decisions in my life? Because the energy is just too much to handle.
Tucker's energy is too much to handle.
I'm exhausted just watching them.
I know.
My wife and I have been married for 15 years, and the story of our meeting is not a really good story because I have known my wife as long as I can remember. In fact, my mom here in the kitchen has got a picture of Lindsay and I when we were 3 years old together. Everybody knows my wife and everybody likes her. She's one of these people that everybody likes. I'm the opposite of that. Like people, see when I go up to people and I say, you know, I'm married to Lindsay, they're like, oh, you're married to Lindsay. Like, boy, she's such a great person. And there's times, you know, like if Lindsay would say, you know, Michael's my husband, we'd be like, oh, Michael's your husband. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I'm definitely a different personality and probably a little bit more harsh than my wife is. But Lindsay she's just a great person. And then we have three kids, Brooklyn, Tucker, and Hunter. It's kind of cool to see how they change, you know, year in and year out. And I'm actually we're already gotten to the point, you know, with some of the kids that they're showing some interest in some of the things that I do. And that's one thing that I really feel very fortunate in the job that I have because I can share what I do with my kids at any second of any day that they want to come out. So, you know, just not everyone has the chance that they can go to work and be around their kid or show their kid what they do or share what they do on a level that I do with my children. And I think, honestly, I get to know my kids on a much deeper level because they will come out, and it's not always about just riding with dad. I've already found at this age that sometimes they just want to come out and talk to me about something that is bothering them. And that's kind of what I used to do with my dad. It's like therapeutic, you know what I mean? So sometimes they're just looking for that person to talk to.
Not only are Michael's kids out a lot, which is great, but my two daughters bring their kids to come for combine rides and have the at least a brushing of the experience that they had when they were kids too. And that's really awesome to be part of.
Honestly, it's kind of nice to be able to go to work and try to leave work there. When you come home, you're at home. I will say, you know, like I talked about earlier, Dad was really, really good at that, at hiding his emotions and hiding all the stuff that would probably was bothering the hell out of him.
The other thing that's been very helpful to me is we have a lot of wonderful landowners, and they are very interested not only that we take care of the ground for them, they want it taken care of for their children and their grandchildren too.
And of course we own enough acres too that we feel like we can experiment with things on our own ground, see how it can become successful, and then apply it to the other acres too. You know, the landowner can make it important to implement these strategies, but if they don't see a rate of return for them, they may not even care or see why they need to make it part of their lease right now either. So there is a struggle too that when you're renting ground, you're not always in control of how that ground is being farmed as a farmer because somebody else does own that ground, and I still have to communicate, I still have to stay within the bounds of the lease that I have on the rented ground that we do have.
I mean, the world of the farmers that we represent is very complicated, and it can be really different depending on how they work the land that they own, and they work the land that they have some sort of relationship with. It's human elements of that.
I have landowners that live in Des Moines and now Florida, the city people. Last summer, they asked us to come and meet with them and explain to their children what we do. And it was a session somewhat like this, where they were allowed, they asked us questions, whatever they wanted to ask us, and we would explain to them why we do something or why we are trying to implement things for their land and for them. And I thought that was extremely productive because then we could have a conversation back and forth on it.
To me, it comes down to the relationship between the farmer and the landowner, and that, just like any relationship, it doesn't happen overnight that you get people on the same page, but it can be done, and it happens across our state.
We are going to Blandesville, which is located in McDonough County, and we are going to go to a field day that is featuring the woodchip bioreactor got installed last year, but we're gonna look at the bioreactor that was installed last year.
I got fingers too if we need them.
Farm Bureau has been kind of in my life for a long time. My dad was the Farm Bureau president in McDonough County, so there's been a lot of ties from his time at the Farm Bureau and mine. Kind of how a bioreactor works is the water comes into the high side. It's a giant pit with wood chips in it, and the water starts on the high side and flows through the bioreactor, hopefully cleaning some of the nutrients out, and that way the water, when it's discharged into creeks, is a little bit cleaner.
The concept is that there's wood chips. Wood chips have a lot of carbon relative to nitrogen. So think of the chips and salsa problem, right? You finish the chips before the salsa runs out, so you go back for more chips, but then you have more chips, the salsa runs out, so you're always going back and forth. At least that's how I eat chips and salsa. When it comes to microbes in these bioreactors, they have a lot of carbon from the wood. They lack nitrogen. So if nitrogen enters into the system, they will rapidly immobilize it and they'll effectively eat it. I'm simplifying. These bioreactors intercept a runoff by tiles or by surface, and they denitrify the nitrogen into gas before it could enter into the Mississippi River.
One of the big key to really installing these things is, knowing your drainage area, and that's kind of a struggle for a lot of farmers. Is there's a lot of tile out in the country that was laid, over 100 years ago.
Based on the census data, about 40% or 50% of all the land in Illinois have tile drainage, and a lot of them are concentrated in the northern and the central part, where you really need the tile to really help. During the springtime, especially when you get more rainfall and then you couldn't plant the crops, you actually hope there's a more drainage happening in the field to get the excessive water out. And then in able to do that, producers actually put artificial pipe beneath the land, such that you can drain the water faster from the land.
Excess water is detrimental to crop growth and development, and it actually encourages nutrient loss, because anytime you have water there that is in excess, the crop can't utilize it and nutrients will flow to it and actually get washed away with it. So you might not even physically see water standing in the field, but you could have a drainage issue below the surface that you don't even know that's affecting nutrient loss, and it is affecting crop growth and development.
If you put fertilizer and then you have a large rainfall event, it's more easy to flush out the fertilizer into the system, flush them out through the tile pipeline. And then so there's some trade-offs that we are talking about here. So I think this adds the complexity.
Tile is extremely important on our farm. My dad says every year you don't have tile, you're paying for it whether you have it or not. That being said, any way that we can improve our tiling operations on our farm is interesting to us. So we would like to try some different practices to see if we could do a better job.
Having a bioreactor just isn't as common, because the investment to get it done in the acres that it covers are, a lot more. I guess we're just trying to figure out, if this is a practice that we can beef up to put on a large scale. But I think it's one of those things that we need to look at. But if we're really going to try to reach the goals that we've set out for ourselves, we need to start looking at these edge of field practices too, because it's not going to take, a single practice or even a couple practices being implemented to reach the goals of preventing nutrient loss. It's going to have to be an all-encompassing thing, and I think that farmers have to realize that it's going to take multiple practices, and that's where having an edge of field practice like a bioreactor comes in.
That's a practice that has to be constructed, and it comes with money, and you move dirt and you put in pipes in the ground for, say, like a woodchip bioreactor. Those can be, before recent days, they were anywhere from like $6,000 to $10,000 to put in. Now, with everything costing more, those are like 3 to 4 times higher than what they used to be. And that benefit doesn't land at that farm. The benefit is actually downstream, because you're cleaning up water that leaves the stream.
You made it.
I know, I'm late.
Farmers take care of the land. We sometimes don't get the best light portrayed upon us about what we're doing, but farmers care about the land, and they're going to do what's right. So this is one step, that publicly we can show that we think about it, and we can learn. We can find out what we need to do. There's always room for improvement.
treating 40 acres. This thing probably takes a while before it stops running completely. Have you had it stop?
As farmers, we need to be proactive and look at what works on our farm, because at every farm, even across our farm, nothing works on every location. I always joke that we've made more mistakes than we've done good.
In this job, and I think in any job, you never want to say, I know it all, and stop learning. And I think that these field days give that opportunity to, I think I always get something out of them when I go to them. We've got a dry dam there where my grandfather lives that's twice as tall as this. And I have seen times where water has been to the top of it. It's unbelievable to think that you can get water that fast. But it's completely possible. So when you said it went around, I'm like, yeah, I'm sure there's times there is water that would probably go around it.
I'm sure some of that.
Colby's site is one of those sites where it took a little bit to get the engineering all figured out for that particular site, but we have water quality monitoring that happens through the University of Illinois and will continue through the next couple of years. So we'll be able to answer those questions of the farmer community, which are how much does it cost and how well does it work and where do you put it on my field? One of the things that I've always felt very strongly about is if we could find researchers who wanted to work on these projects with a farmer crowd in mind, not only forwarding the science, that way farmers can continue to improve the environment, but also be willing to come out and speak to farmer crowds over and over again.
Nice to meet you.
You may have been around the
Yeah,
other
we
field
lived
days
in
too,
McHenry County.
That's what I thought.
Awesome. You were in McHenry County too?
No, that is my first. So
Okay.
yeah.
If I can stand on the edge of the room and watch an academic and a farmer ask each other questions and watch that happen, there is really nothing better than that. And I give our farmers who have participated in on-farm research a lot of credit, because it does take a lot to open your farm. Even a small part of it, it's a pretty great exchange.
Lauren brings so much deep understanding for farmers' needs, as well as her team bring, the connections across the whole state with different farm, county farm bureaus.
Farm Bureau identifies farmers, links us up with them, helps us with those relationships. And they also give us very honest feedback. And we need that feedback from farmers and from the Farm Bureau. We don't want to do something that's off in the ivory tower and it's just not going to be effective.
We've got this project going on with Andrew Margonaut, where he's going to be coming out and he's going to be measuring the nitrogen in the field, and we're going to have some where are in treatments that have nitrogen applied to them and some that don't, and he's going to compile that information, and we're going to see, hopefully get some good information about how this is all affecting water quality and stuff out here. But really, it's a privilege to be a part of those kind of things because we need data to drive the decisions that we're all making here. We can't just say, well, if everyone implements this strategies, we're going to solve the problem. Well, we need to have the data behind it to support that.
And I think it's a heinous sin of researchers that we show up to a farm and we start telling farmers how they should farm or how their system works. I think the starting point has to be you show up and you listen and you learn what they think are the processes, the phenomenon going on.
I like it when they come out, they want to help solve the problem. They don't want to come out and say, well, the research shows you need to do this, so you should just do this on your operation. They need to take every operation into account to help make those decisions, to help farmers be more successful on how they can attack the problems that they're facing year in and year out.
Farmers have informed a lot of our own experiments, again through the Illinois Farm Bureau. We've designed experiments because a farmer said, hey, I noticed this, and he was right, which is not a surprise.
When you listen, when you try to understand them, and then when you try to discuss how we could be helpful, that conversation quickly turns into much more positive and open the door. What I feel farmers may not welcome is you go there, you try to teach them what to do, but that's really bad, because how could you know better about farming, agriculture farming, their land? They know the best.
The researchers have to do more. Ball is in their court, I think, to do more with the farmers. I think we need a lot more on-farm assessments that look at the reality, the variability, the non-fertilizer losses, the complexities, the weather-driven aspects, all these things in an on-farm context. And we're doing it, again, with the help of Farm Bureau and with some great farmers.